So, we've done these before. This is another Skyblock story where I tell you a story that I wrote and I play Skyblock in the background. So, please enjoy this story about Cuprum. Santasha stopped at the copper gate to Cuprum and looked up, wiping sweat from her brow. This was it. This was when she found out if it had been a terrible mistake to leave everything she had ever known. Taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, she walked forward and knocked on the gate. A small window opened up in the gate. "Yes?" asked an old man with a creaky voice. "Do you have papers?" "What papers?" Santasha wondered. "No," she told him. "Then I suppose you'll just have to tell me who you are," he said. "My name is Santasha. I come from Chalkos, and where is that?" The man interrupted her. Santasha blinked, coming to a stammering stop. Then she pointed behind her. "About 100 miles that direction." The gate guard nodded. "Continue." "Well, I was hoping that I could get a job here," Santasha said. The guard grunted and looked her over. "I don't know if we have a need for someone like you." Santasha blushed. Admittedly, she was significantly shorter than most people, and didn't look very strong. And she had been walking for the past 5 days, having to just sleep in the dirt, so she didn't look her best. "I'm a hard worker," she said, "and I'm stronger than I look. And I have some experience working with gears." Her family in Chalkos had made a living by fixing gears for their neighbors. Santasha's father had taught her all he knew, and it was clear to all of them that Santasha was a natural with gears. "You're looking for a job with gears?" the guard asked, smirking. Santasha straightened at his tone. "I've worked on a lot of gears. I've worked on gears for lighting, gears for agriculture, gears for architecture, gears for foraging, gears for Chalkos gears." "Sure," the guard said, "but Cuprum gears are different. Chalkos." "What?" "I'm from Chalkos," Santasha told him. "Did I ask?" "No." "Sorry." "Call me sir." "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir." The guard nodded in satisfaction. "Good. You're a quick learner. I guess you could be put to use." Santasha's heart leapt with excitement, but that came crashing down when the guard said, "I could use a cleaning girl." "A cleaning girl?" Santasha asked. "I'm too busy to keep my rooms clean myself," the guard said. "My rooms need sweeping, my sheets need washing, my food needs to be cooked. You can help with that. I'm sure the other guards would appreciate help with their own quarters." But I'm good with gears," Santasha stammered. She had wanted to go to Cuprum because she was a natural at gears, but there's only so much that her father and the others in Chalkos could teach her. The idea was that she could get an apprenticeship in Cuprum and learn a lot more about gears, then come back and teach her town more about gears. Her family had been against the idea initially, but she had finally convinced them that the study of gears had a lot more potential than they were able to make use of, and going to Cuprum would help them harness that potential. But that all hinged on the idea that Santasha would be able to get an apprenticeship with someone who worked with gears. The man snorted. "You really thought you could come to Cuprum and get a job working with gears?" "But I'm the best in my town," Santasha protested. "You don't even know the right names for gears," the man said with scorn. "You really think you have a place here?" Looking at her shocked face, he sighed. "Fine, since you're obviously not from around here, I'll forgive your ignorance. Here in Cuprum, very few people become gearists. It's a very privileged job, usually just saved for the nobility. You're not getting a job like that. But if you want to live in Cuprum, then I can offer you a job as a cleaning girl." Santasha bit her lip. She would not cry in front of the guard. It seemed like her dreams of learning gears from the best in Cuprum were shattered. But she couldn't go back to her family. They would tell her that they had been right all along, that she should have never gone to Cuprum, that her dreams of learning more about gears and becoming truly great at them were foolish. "I'll take the job," she told the guard. It would get her into Cuprum, which would put her next to Cuprum gears. Maybe she could learn something by observing. The guard nodded. "Good girl. Come in. I'll give you the papers to sign." He opened the gates to let her in. A week later, Santasha collapsed on her cot, exhausted. She had been given a small bed in a closet off to the side in an out-of-the-way hallway. She had gotten lost more than once when trying to find this place, and it was pitch black when she closed the door, which was always, because she had been instructed to keep the door shut lest it get in the way of someone else, someone more important. She hadn't been given any candles to burn, and she had heard mouse squeaks in this closet, and it smelled terrible. Her only comfort was a small heating gear that she had brought from home. When she had accepted the job from the gate guard, Santasha had thought that he had taken pity on a poor girl far from home and given her a job out of the kindness of his heart. But she had quickly learned that a cleaning girl was one of the lowest jobs in Cuprum. She was put to work doing the most menial and grossest tasks that no one else wanted to do. She was only given one break in the middle of the day to grab lunch, and the food was not good. Santasha's sister Sylvia made better meals than that, and she was renowned in Chalkos for being a terrible cook. If there was one good thing about Santasha's job, it was that it kept her too busy and too tired to think. When she was sweeping and scrubbing and washing, she couldn't miss her family. She couldn't think about how her dreams about learning more about gears had been crushed. She couldn't think about how miserable she was. She just worked, and then the day was over, and she was able to sleep. And sleep is what Santasha really wanted to do right now. The day had been long, and she had been put to work in the kitchens today, washing dishes. After hours upon hours of doing the same scrubbing motions, her arms ached. But if she was ever going to leave this job, she needed to come up with more of a plan. Santasha reached into her pocket and pulled out a copper penny. The gate guard that had given her this job had told her that the majority of her pay would be going to her room and board, which apparently meant that she was working to be able to eat and to have a place to sleep. But that was not all of her wages, and once a week she would be given a single copper penny. Santasha had received her first one today, and she rubbed it while she thought. She could not stay here. It was just too difficult and too tiring. Santasha had worked before, of course. She had helped to clean the house when she lived in Chalkos, and she had helped her father with gears, which more often than not ended up being very dirty and grueling. Santasha was used to hard work, but not this much. Earlier today, Santasha had seen one of the guards slap one of the other cleaning girls because she hadn't cleaned a plate to his satisfaction. When Santasha had caught a glimpse of the plate, she had not been able to see where it was dirty. The level of expectation must be very high here, and Santasha honestly wasn't sure if she could meet it. She was just always too tired. This was not what Santasha had come to Cuprum for. She had come to learn more about gears, and that wasn't happening right now. And Santasha had finally made up her mind to do something about it. She pressed her ear up against her door. There were no sounds outside. The cleaning girls always went to bed pretty late, and she had waited for quite a while after that, so there shouldn't be anyone else around. There was nothing to be gained by waiting, so Santasha opened the door and stepped outside. Fortunately, there was no one around, but there were some candles flickering on the walls of the hallway, which made Santasha mad. Her closet was miserable, especially since it was kept in the dark, and there were more than enough candles here, flickering in the hall. They could have spared one from here, without cutting down on one's ability to see in this hallway. They had just kept her in the dark because they wanted to. Santasha glared at the candles, then started carefully wandering around the empty hallways of the guardhouse. From what she had learned while working here, this was a building that stretched all the way around the wall of Cuprum, and was where the gate guards and their staff, like the cleaning girls, lived. Santasha had not seen much of it, because this building was broken up into segments that were separated using locked doors. That was her first goal. Santasha wanted to find these doors and see if they were really locked. She knew that most people ignored the cleaning girls, and so they probably wouldn't recognize her if they saw her wandering around at night. But there was always a chance, so it would be safer for her to sneak around at night if she did it in a different section of the guardhouse. But when Santasha finally found the door to the next segment, which announced itself with a plaque on the wall next to it, The door was indeed locked. After jiggling the knob a few times, she slumped against the door, thinking about what to do next. Yes, she had been expecting the door to be locked, but it was still disappointing. Well, she wasn't going to let this stop her. She could still sneak around and try to learn things. It would just be more dangerous. That meant that she could do it, but she would just have to be extra careful. That night, she didn't get to learn much about gears. She was mostly getting familiar with the guardhouse, learning all the branching corridors and memorizing the locations of all the doors with a plaque next to them. This process took a few nights of wandering, but Santasha made sure to do it. She was not supposed to be doing this, which made wandering around at night especially dangerous. She didn't know the punishment for these actions, and she didn't want to find out. Santasha figured that the better she knew the area, the better she would be able to avoid people. After a few days, Santasha felt confident enough in her ability to avoid people to start studying the gears that were used in the guardhouse. And so she started her investigation. Each night, she spent an hour or two looking at the gears around the guardhouse, memorizing the sigils inscribed in the metal, studying the patterns in the teeth of the gears, and doing her best to figure out what metals they were made of. She wanted to spend more time studying the gears, but she was always showing up to work exhausted from not getting the sleep she needed. She just couldn't afford to spend any more of her night studying the gears. But even though Santasha was pushing herself to the brink of exhaustion, which made her more miserable and less able to function while working, it was worth it. She was learning so much about gears. She had used sigils at home before, yes, but she had only known a few of them. She knew that you could use different metal combinations in the gears to produce different effects, but Cuprum seemed to have access to many metals that she had never heard of. And there were patterns being used in the teeth of the gears that she had never seen before. Santasha spent weeks studying the gears in the guardhouse, learning as much as she could about them. But that unfortunately wasn't much. She couldn't read the unfamiliar sigils, and even the familiar ones seemed to be used in unusual ways. She didn't understand what the new patterns and metals did because she had no way of knowing what a given gear actually did. And, of course, she couldn't ask anyone without raising some serious suspicion. Feeling like she was left with no other option, Santasha decided to shift her goals. There really wasn't anything more she could learn about gears from this guardhouse. If she wanted to learn more, she had to leave. She knew, of course, that she couldn't leave for good, at least right now. As part of getting accepted for this job, she had to sign some papers, which she now knew had said that she wasn't allowed to leave for the indefinite future. One of the other cleaning girls, who had signed very similar papers, had tried that the other day, and she had been quickly caught and brought back for a beating. No, Santasha couldn't leave for good yet. But she knew from hearing the guards and the cleaning girls who were from Cuprum talk that there was a Gearus research facility relatively close to the guardhouse. If she could sneak into there, maybe Santasha would be able to find something that would help her learn more about gears. That day, when she was washing dishes in the kitchen near the end of her shift, Santasha stumbled into one of the guards who had stopped by to complain to one of the other girls about a dish that had been washed. Santasha snagged the keyring from his belt, then stood up, dropping the keys into the pocket of her apron. "My apologies, sir," she said quickly, hoping to keep his attention away from what she had just done. "I wasn't looking where I was going." The guard cursed at her and shoved her. "Just get out of my way." Santasha went back to scrubbing dishes, fighting to keep from shaking. She was sure that at any point he would notice that his keys were missing and figure out that she had stolen them. But he soon left without noticing, and then her shift was over. Santasha went back to her closet as usual, but didn't stay there for long. only waiting long enough to let the majority of people settle down for the night, then hurried out. There were still a few people around, but Santasha had learned that if she kept her face hidden and walked quickly, nobody paid attention to her. She navigated to the front of the guardhouse, then, after a brief check to make sure no one was around, unlocked the door and let herself out. Once outside, she had to stop for a moment. The cool air felt wonderful on her skin. She hadn't realized how stuffy it had been inside the guardhouse, but now that she was out, it felt amazing. She looked up and caught her breath. The sky. It had been a while since she had seen the sky. Santasha wished that she could linger and appreciate the moment, but she didn't have any time. The sooner she got to the Gear's research facility, the sooner she could return to the guardhouse, and the less likely it was that she would be caught. She tossed the keys off to the side, which hopefully would mean that the theft couldn't be linked back to her, then hurried towards where she knew the Gear's research facility was. It was a smaller, less impressive building than she had expected, but fortunately, it was unlocked. When Santasha opened the door and stepped inside, she saw that there was a layer of dust on everything. It looked like it had been abandoned for years, and there were so many gears on the walls. Santasha would have loved to spend hours here, just looking at all the different gears, but that wasn't what she was here for. She needed actual information. Fortunately, she was able to find exactly what she wanted. In the center of the room, there was a table, and on that table, there was a book. It was too dark for her to make out the title, and Santasha wanted to get out of there as quickly as she could before somebody noticed that someone had snuck into this building, so she stuffed the book under her shirt, then hurried back to the guardhouse. Safely in her closet, Santasha set the book down, then grabbed the candle she had stolen from one of the hallways a few nights ago. She touched it to the heating gear she had brought from home, which she had made a few modifications to, and the wick burst into flame. Using the candle, she finally saw what book she had grabbed. It was called Photoistic Gear Patternings and Metallic Compounds, and it was written by someone named Daida. Grinning to herself, Santasha opened the book and started to read. Well, that was the story for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and comment below, and I will catch you next time.